My final thoughts for Bills versus Packers on Sunday night, some comments on the new stadium renderings, predictions for the game, injury recap, and prospects to watch are all coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Friday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day. And as a reminder to you, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode of Locked On Bills is sponsored by SimpliSafe Home Security with Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe. 24/7 monitoring agents capture evidence to accurately verify a threat for faster police response. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Visit simplisafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. Well, folks, this is the last time we're going to speak before the Buffalo Bills take on the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football. And so on today's podcast, I have some final thoughts to share, including details of the tailgate that we're putting on Sunday. I want to talk about some of the renderings that came through regarding the new stadium. We'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble about the injuries. I've got game predictions, prospects to watch. You know what's coming your way here today on the podcast. Before I really kind of get into things, I want to note that I'm sorry for yesterday where my microphone was not correctly on. We did the crossover with Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers. And for those of you that listen to the podcast, you could tell that my audio was a touch off. And that's because whenever we got together to record, we never switched over the settings. And so my audio came through my computer and not the microphone. And therefore I sounded off. But hopefully you found it still to be enjoyable and consumable. And hopefully you learned something on the podcast yesterday. But my apologies for that issue. And unfortunately, we couldn't find another time to record with the correct audio. And so it just was what it was. So I'm sorry about that. And I'll do my best to make sure we don't have that happen again. One of the big things that's happened recently, Thursday morning, was the initial renderings of the Bills' new stadium came through. And I know there's a lot of different opinions out there about them. And so this is going to be my opportunity to share my thoughts on the renderings. And I really enjoyed listening to Ron Rakuya on WGR kind of taking things a little bit further and answering some of the big questions that people have. And if you didn't catch that, I'd encourage you to go on the Odyssey app and go back to that segment with Joe DiBiase and Jeremy White from WGR on Thursday morning, because it's really good. And I liked how he talked about the overall footprint and vision for what it's all going to be, and some of the different things that are going to happen to bring it to life, and different options people will have to purchase tickets and, really get a virtual experience. So I encourage you guys to check that out. But my initial thoughts on these stadium renderings is that I'm really happy. I think it's a beautiful stadium. Like I said, I love listening to Ron Rakuya on Thursday talking about the overall footprint and vision for the surrounding areas. I love that it's going to be a grass field, and that's so good for the players in terms of injury prevention. Grass is just better, right? There's a lot of information, data out there that tells you that players are less likely to get injured on grass than they are on these artificial turf surfaces that we see across the NFL. I've never been, when we're talking about this new stadium, I've never been overly concerned about the details and the amenities, to be completely honest with you. But it looks to me like a very modern and visually appealing stadium. Jets fans, you saw this immediately, and some of the Jets writers, they come out and said, look, this is a better looking stadium than MetLife, right? And they just got that thing built a few years ago. It's one of the newer stadiums in the league, and they're jealous of what the Bills have. So for me, this whole thing has always come down to the long-term viability of the Buffalo Bills in Western New York. Look around, folks. Teams are moving. The Rams, the Chargers, the Raiders, it's happening. And the Bills are the profile of a team that can bolt for a bigger market. This stadium affirms the long-term sustainability of the Buffalo Bills in Western New York. And I'm relieved that the Bills are getting a brand new stadium in Orchard Park, and that my head can completely dismiss any notion that my team won't be going anywhere. I think it's beautiful. You know that I love that it's open air. I love the grass. It looks great. It looks modern. The big Buffalo statues look great. Sounds like there's a great vision for the footprint overall in terms of it being a place for people to congregate, not only on game days, but all year long. It looks awesome. I'm very excited about it. See you there in 2026. Speaking of see you there, I'll be at the game this Sunday. Packers, Bills, Sunday Night Football, and really looking forward to it. We're actually doing a tailgate, and the tailgate will be at the Tailgate Village between the bus lot and the RV lot right across from the stadium, and I will post a map on social media exactly where we will be. So check my Twitter at @Marino. I'll tweet it out, and you can find it on my timeline. I'll make sure that I do that probably on Friday. So just check for that, and you can see exactly where we're going to be. But right across from the stadium in the Tailgate Village, between the RV lot and the bus lot. We'll be ready to roll at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be a Draft Network tailgate. So I'll be there with several of my Draft Network colleagues, including our CEO, Paige DeMacos. She is a diehard Bears fan and a Packers hater, so she's very excited to watch Aaron Rodgers lose, and she loves Bills Mafia, and I think she's really excited to kind of get that whole experience. My co-host for Draft Dudes and my best friend, Kyle Krabs, who is a diehard Miami Dolphins fan. You guys know him from the Locked On Dolphins podcast. He's going to be there for his first Bills Mafia experience, and he's a Dolphins fan, so you can probably understand how he feels about all that. Also, the producer of Draft Dudes, Chris Schubert, he's a diehard Jets fan. He'll be there. His first Bills Mafia experience. His sister, though, a Bills fan. So interesting dynamics there. We'll have Sam Russo, who's a Bengals fan, but he is developing some love for the Bills. He was with me for the preseason game that I went to against the Colts. My wife, Lorraine, will be there, and she loves the Bills. She really does, but she loves the Carolina Panthers a little bit more. And we've been trying to get that full conversion done. So come by and say hello to her and my colleagues and myself. We'll have food. We'll have giveaways. I'll have copies of my book, Go Bills, on hand for purchase. It's $25. Bring cash, or you can Venmo. Won't be able to take any type of debit or credit card. So just keep that in mind. If you want to buy a copy on hand, $25 cash or Venmo for payment. I'll be happy to sign them for you. If you have a copy already, bring it by. Be happy to personalize that. So just come on by. Come say hello. We have giveaways. We have food. We got people. It's going to be awesome. So love meeting fellow Bills fans. And I want these are people that are very close to me, to be honest. My wife, my direct coworkers, Kyle and I, we are co-founders of the Draft Network. Paige is our CEO. Chris, I've worked with for a number of years. I want them to get the full Bills Mafia experience. So come by, say hello, get some free stuff, get some food. If you don't have a copy of the book, grab a copy of the book, and look forward to meeting you. Oh, by the way, if you're not going to be there and you want to get a copy of the book, you can go to BuffaloBillsBook.com and get a copy. Now, you can go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon, but I would love it if you bought it directly from the publisher. That would be great. So BuffaloBillsBook.com is the spot to get your copy if you don't want to pick one up at the tailgate. So come on by. We'll again, I'll put the map out on social media. I do have one final thought about Bills Packers that I want to get into, and it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the Packers. It has everything to do with the Bills and what they've looked like coming out of bye weeks under Sean McDermott. And I think the initial point that a lot of people make when it comes to the Bills coming off the bye under Sean McDermott is that the Bills are 5-0. Sean McDermott, 5-0, coming off the bye as head coach of the Buffalo Bills. And that's great. But I think the last 3 years, the Bills have come out of the bye quite flat and quite sluggish, to be completely honest with you, despite winning some ball games. Real quick, let me just give you some quick thoughts on those 3 games. Last year, 2021, was the 26-11 win over the Miami Dolphins. Second fewest points that the Bills had scored in a game that year to that point. Second fewest yards that they had that season at that point. This game was 3-3 at halftime. Do you remember that? This was last year, 3-3 at halftime, 10-3 to start the fourth quarter. Now, things happened in the fourth quarter. The Bills won 26-11, all that. But this was a really weird football game. Again, 3-3 at halftime. The Bills, I thought, were pretty sluggish, at least initially in the game. The year before that, 2020, at home against the Chargers. The Bills won the game 27-17. And this was the 2020 Bills that were 13-3 and went to the AFC Championship game. This was a 3-7 Chargers team at the time. It was a one-score game in the fourth quarter, and the Bills needed a Trey White fourth quarter interception to set up a Tyler Bass field goal to preserve the win. The Chargers had more yards than the Bills, and the Bills turned it over 3 times. The Bills were sluggish, in my opinion. Same thing in 2019. At home against Miami. The Bills were losing 14-9 going into the fourth quarter against an 0-6 Dolphins team. Now, the Bills won 31-21 because of, again, the fourth quarter. But that game, that score, that 31-21 score was inflated because of the Micah Hyde onside kick return for a touchdown to make it look like a bigger margin of victory. But in all 3 games, the team started very slow, especially for the first half and into the third quarter before kind of waking up in the fourth quarter. And so I hope that the Bills and Sean McDermott have done well to examine the results coming off of the bye and are eager to play a more complete game from start to finish. Again, the 5-0 record's great. But the way that they played early in those games that made them way closer than they needed to be against bad football teams, they bothered me. And I talked about this last year when I was analyzing that 2021 Dolphins win, the 3-3 game at halftime. This was a talking point, and I've been holstering it for this moment because here we are. The Bills are coming out of the bye. And I want to see them play better coming out of the bye despite the fact that they have a 5-0 record. All right, here's a sports analogy for you. When it comes to burglars, your home is like the end zone, and you need the absolute strongest defense you can muster. This is why I use and trust SimpliSafe Home Security. At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. It's cutting-edge technology powered by 24/7 professionally monitoring agents who always have your back, so you always know that your home is safe. SimpliSafe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and outside your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. You can customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. You save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. Follow him on Twitter at bangedupbills. He's here to talk about the injury situation ahead of Bills-Packers on Sunday Night Football. And Kyle, let's start with the Bills offensive line. There's 2 players here that I have some questions about. One of them, of course, being Spencer Brown, the one big one, I guess, from the last time the Bills played against the Chiefs, the ankle. Hasn't practiced all week, and so I want to hear from you on what you've been able to pick up from the Nuggets and just the timetable here. And the other one is Mitch Morse, who I think will play on Sunday, and I guess you can affirm that. But he's been a limited participant in practice. He was a limited participant on Wednesday due to veteran rest, and then a limited participant on Thursday due to the elbow, which we know has kind of been a lingering issue. So just give me some confidence that he's going to play, but also let us know if this is going to be something that's going to be something Mitch is going to deal with all season long.
Okay. So we'll hit on Spencer Brown first. So we talked about this last week on the podcast during the bye week. He suffered a right ankle sprain when he kind of got tripped up from behind by, I think it was friendly fire in the second quarter of the Chiefs game. He was later seen in a boot. Had told Thad Brown out in Rochester News 8 that he had a real bad sprain. And so at the time, we had speculated that, hey, he could play based on the research we see, but considering he said it was a bad sprain, it probably wouldn't hurt to have him sit out an extra week there, especially since he's playing on the right side, his right ankle. it would take a lot to have him move outside, try to keep his assignment outside, or if he gets beat inside, pushing off that right ankle there. So he's been struggling off and on throughout the season. You have that depth for a reason. Get David Questenberry in there to play and let Spencer Brown get right for, later on in the season. So I don't see how he plays, especially after not practicing Wednesday and Thursday, but he's been off to the side on the bike, using the heavy ball, the medicine ball, the heavy ropes. He's been moving around, but I haven't seen him doing any running, which is not surprising given the injury. The other injury you noted was Mitch Morse. He did pop up on the Thursday injury report with an elbow injury, specifically the right elbow. If you recall, this goes back to week 2 against the Tennessee Titans, where he had to exit for several plays. I think it was originally questionable to return, did come back. And then he's just kind of lingered on the injury report since then with the elbow. I don't recall off the top of my head if he was on the week 6 injury report. I believe he was, though, with the elbow. But it's interesting that it popped back up again. So he was limited in veteran rest, which is odd because usually they don't practice at all. But we saw it with Jordan Phillips, Jordan Poyer, but they probably want to get those guys ramped up slowly instead of having them not do no practice instead of they were off last week. So I want to make sure they slowly ramp them back up there. Could there be some arthritic changes in the elbow? There is a snapping elbow. He has blocked in the league for a long time. I'm sure there's a lot of that joint that's beat up, and it's probably come more of a management thing more than it's a injury and it's getting better. So this could linger into the season, but he's been playing exceptionally well from what we've seen. I don't see this causing any problems, at least from what we can see. And, it might come out later on that he has, surgery or, it was a bigger problem, but we've seen these guys play through a ton of injuries. Like we saw with Jordan Poyer, other guys. So I could see it being a maintenance thing, maybe lingering, but I don't expect it's going to affect his play too much.
Let's talk a little bit about Trey White. And this is interesting because I kind of took a worst case scenario approach when I said, hey, look, I think it's week 8 against Green Bay. I said that before the season started. I thought that would be the debut. And I thought we were on that direction with him being activated before the bye. Well, Sean McDermott comes out this week and says Trey White's not playing this week. The good news is he went from the red contact jersey to the typical, hey, you can do everything jersey. My speculation here is that this is out of an abundance of caution, but maybe even more motivated by the mechanics of getting him on the active roster, where you get him on the active roster, but somebody has to come off. Somebody has to fall off. And there's no logical direction right now for who you're going to cut, right? Or put on IR. And so maybe this is an example of, hey, don't actually need Trey White this week. And we'd rather just kind of see what happens in this game and see if something happens, maybe an injury or something like that, that allows you a more seamless opportunity to get him on the 53-man roster. What are you thinking here? Is that check out for you, or what's on your mind? Is it just, hey, Trey White's not physically ready to play in an NFL game?
I think at this point he's physically ready. I'm seeing a lot of film come out from practice from just every beat reporter. They always get their phones on them. They're always seeing what's going on. I think is the phrase Occam's razor. That's correct. That's the most simple explanation is usually the most likely, correct?
Yeah, well, because we listened to the Bruce exclusive, so that's the only reason I know what that is. I promise you.
All right.
Shout out Bruce Nolan.
Absolutely. So it's probably what it is. They probably say, hey, we don't have anybody to cut. Let's see what happens with the week 8 contest. See if maybe there's somebody we can move over. Unfortunately, we have had some injuries where they've had to move over to season-long IR. Even if they were, short-term IR, you can at least move that guy over and then figure it out later, because injuries, unfortunately, do keep happening. That's why I have this role on Locked On Bills every week. So it's probably what's going on is they just want to see what happens with the roster. I think it also benefits that the team's playing so well without him, and not saying he's replaceable. I mean, everybody in every job to some extent is replaceable, but you're going to take a 80% Tre'Davious White over a 100%, let's say Kyrie Elam or Dane Jackson any day, but they're getting by without him right now. So why get him out there sooner? Graded exposure, if you will. So if you're seeing that, hey, I can get him fully healthy for 8 games versus, hey, he might get dinged up and have a hamstring, quad, calf injury and might be limited for 2 or 3 of those games, I'd rather take the 8 games fully healthy, even though you might be kicking that can down the road there. So it probably is Occam's razor. It probably is just let's see what happens. But it's been real fascinating from my standpoint to watch how this is all played out, because I thought he was going to go to active roster at roster cutdowns and be, have that 3-week ramp up during practice and going. So I've been fantastically wrong, but we also haven't seen the Bills operate having to do this season-long injury like this. They've had ACL tears before, like we talked about last week, but they've either happened early in the season or in the preseason. So to see them operate with a late injury like that and then see how they take it into the next season has been real interesting and a great case study, if you will, in terms of looking at it. So I like that the Bills have the luxury of getting their guys back out there when they are able to, rather than when they need to.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be. And look, you either have to cut somebody and expose them to waivers and hope you get them back in the practice squad and also release somebody from the practice squad, or you have to put somebody on IR and they're on the shelf for 4 weeks, right? And you just don't have an easy answer. You're getting by without Trey White just fine. The Packers wide receivers are very underwhelming. I kind of get it, but Kyle, I'd like to see 2-7 back there again. I love watching that guy play ball, and so I'm excited to see him. And I'm sure surely the next time we talk, he's playing against the Jets, right? I feel like that's got to be the case. All right, let's move on to the Packers here. Just anything you have. This is a team that is injured, right? They're not necessarily in great shape. Some of their key names on the fence here. So I'd love to hear anything that you can share about the relevant Packers injuries.
All right. So they lost Randall Cobb, the wide receiver, back in week 6 to a left high ankle sprain. He's on injury reserve for the next 4 games. They lost one of their offensive linemen, Jake Hansen, to a biceps injury. I don't know the severity of it, but he was also put on IR. So they're losing depth at both positions. They are currently dealing with a mess of an offensive line. They have offensive tackle David Bakhtiari dealing with a left knee injury. So quick recap. Tore his left ACL on New Year's Eve back in 2020. Missed all of last season other than a quick appearance against the Detroit Lions, I believe, in the season finale. But he's just been battling back. He's had, I believe, 2 more procedures since then. And it's been unrelated to ACL injury. So there's been other damage in there they've had to clean up. He's just been struggling. And he's been struggling so much that there was 2 points that I've seen in the past 2 weeks have come out about his injury. First up is backup offensive lineman Zach Tom, who should be starting in place of one of the other downed offensive linemen this week. He was saying that he always has to be ready because with how Bakhtiari looks in practice, which isn't a good sign to say, hey, this guy's not getting through practice all too well, and I have to be ready because this guy might not be able to go Sundays. Like, you want your best players to be able to go, and if they can't even practice, how can they possibly play on Sundays? The other thing is they had to shut him down for week 7 because he practiced 3 days in a row. Now, I know that these athletes are, crazy talented. They take a lot more effort to get these guys right, especially playing such a brutal game. But it's really interesting that they have to limit his practice reps in order to make sure he's even available to play for Sunday. That tells me he's still not healthy, and he's a huge liability on that left side. I mean, 60% David Bakhtiari still might be better than, some of the other reserve guys, but still, that's not good, especially when you got the defensive line that Belfalo's coming in with here. Going off of that with the offensive lineman, Elgin Jenkins, he's coming off an ACL tear of his own from last year. I believe it was week 11. So he's dealing with coming back from that. He's on the injury report, I believe, because of all that. And they've been bouncing around, and I know they don't want to move him to the left side, back at left guard, because if they do, that makes your whole left side all weak, and that's going to be open season for Vaughn Miller, Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, all those guys. It's just going to be nasty. So they keep on moving him around, and keep him away, and spread out the deficits, if you will. Other guys you have to be worried about are Alan Lazard, who suffered what looked to be an AC joint sprain in the third quarter. I believe on the last play, came down real hard on the left shoulder. He even came out and said today after practice that he felt a snap, crackle, and pop. He joked about the Rice Krispie guys coming in after that there too. And he doesn't think he's going to play. So you're losing your top receiver in Green Bay. You got Sammy Watkins still working his way back from a hamstring injury, suffered back prior to week 3. You got Christian Watson deal with the hamstring injury. He's missed the past 2 weeks. This team's a mess right now, but they have that underdog mentality, or they think they do. So Buffalo has the clear injury advantage heading into this game, but it'll be real interesting to see how it goes. And one final point, Rashawn Gary, he's working through concussion protocol. Looks like he's a stage 3, stage 4. So he might be a more game time decision if he's going to be cleared. But if he doesn't play, that's only going to be beneficial to Buffalo.
Well, I know that you're not the only chicken farmer in Western New York, but I am certain that you're the only chicken farmer and doctor of physical therapy. So thank you for, not necessarily the agricultural background that you offer, but the medical expertise that you provide here on the podcast. Kyle, thanks so much.
Thank you, Joe.
Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. It can be very difficult to focus on problem solving when you are facing challenges in life. If that's the case for you, I strongly recommend trying therapy. A therapist can help you become a better problem solver, making it easier to accomplish your goals no matter how big or small. We've all had situations in life where we need someone to talk to, and I encourage everyone to be open to therapy. If you're ready to try therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's a convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online way to have therapy. You just fill out a brief survey and get matched with a therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can help get you there. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. All right, folks, it is prediction time here on the podcast. I have 5 of them for you regarding this football game on Sunday night. Number 1, James Cook gets multiple targets in the passing game. And I know that that's not a very aggressive sounding prediction, but there's only been one game where he was targeted more than once this year. He only has one game where he actually has a reception. All 4 of his catches on the season came against Miami. And so as part of my predictions, I always try to center them around things and dynamics about football games that I think will be true, that will help tell the story of the game. And I think that coming out of the bye, the Bills are going to want to figure out ways to maximize how James Cook can help the football team. And part of that is opportunity, right? And hopefully he's ready for some opportunity, because we've talked about this. The Bills need more than Devin Singletary to be able to help them at running back. And so I think they will try to unleash James Cook in this game. I don't know what the results are going to be like. I hope they're favorable, but I do think that he will get multiple targets in the game for just the second time so far this season. Number 2, I believe this will be the most passing yards this season allowed by the Green Bay Packers to date. The current high is 269 in week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings. As we've discussed, the Packers are allowing the fewest passing yards per game in the NFL at 168 per game. Now, you could certainly make a case for the quarterbacks that they've faced being a big part of that, but I'd also say that the Packers have a lot of talent on defense. So I think that Josh Allen has 270 or more passing yards against the Packers. Number 3, I predict that the Bills get their first forced fumble of the season on defense. I was looking through the Bills' statistics during the bye, and not a single player has been credited with a forced fumble. I predict that that changes on Sunday. It's kind of crazy to me that through 6 games, the Bills have not forced a single fumble. Good thing they're getting interceptions, right? I'm not saying the Bills are going to recover the fumble. I'm not predicting that. But I am predicting that they will force a fumble. They are due. Number 4, I predict that tight ends for the game, all tight ends for the Bills and the Packers, will combine for under 75 yards. The reason that I say this is because the Packers and Bills are 2 of the best teams in the NFL at limiting tight end production this season. The Packers have only allowed 197 yards to tight ends this year. That's second fewest in the NFL. The Bills have allowed 290, which is 8th fewest. So these 2 teams are in the top 25% of the league this year in limiting tight end production. Now, I think Dawson Knox is very capable of making me wrong about this, and I hope that I am, and I hope it's because of Dawson Knox. But I don't think the Packers have anything dynamic at tight end. And the Bills are good at stopping tight ends. And the Bills do have a dynamic tight end in Dawson Knox, but the Packers are great at stopping tight ends. So I think collectively, all the tight ends on either roster will combine for less than 75 passing yards. And then lastly, do I think the Bills win this game? Yes, I do. I think the Bills improve to 6-1 on Sunday night. I know there's always a possibility that the Bills will boat race their opponent. We know that. And certainly there's a chance that happens. The Packers have been really poor on offense. They're reeling. Aaron Rodgers obviously is capable of leading an elite NFL offense, but I think he's extremely limited by the offensive line and the weapons that he has at wide receiver. I think there's some positive regression coming for the Packers, but I think that happening against Buffalo is tough for me to envision. I think the Bills are going to play a good game on defense. I think they'll play well on offense, and I think they'll win this game. Now, I don't know that this is going to be a monster game for the Bills. I think, like I've stated, I have some concerns about the Packers' defense and how well they match up and the talent that they have. You know, the Bills might only score in the mid-20s, but I have a hard time envisioning the Packers getting into the 20s. And so my score prediction has been 27-17. Again, I recognize this could be a 35-10 type game. I get it. I know that. But those are very unlikely outcomes in the NFL. So when I think about the talent the Packers have had on defense, how I think the offense has kind of been slow for the last 3 years coming out of the bye, I think this could be a mid-20s type scoring game for the Bills. But again, I do acknowledge the possibility and even likelihood that the Bills put a bunch of points up and make the Packers look silly on defense and put up another statement win here as they prove their dominance through the NFL. And I think what gives me a lot of hope for the Bills on offense in this game, playing better than they have historically in the bye, is just how good the Bills offense has been this year. You know, scoring across the league is down. And we talked about last year how the Bills came out flat against Pittsburgh in week 1, and I thought it took them several games for their offense to really get right, and I don't think they found consistency until late in the season. Well, we know that that's not been true for this team. And so I'm hopeful that the makeup of what they have right now can help overcome the sluggish offensive performances coming out of the bye over the last 3 years. So there you have it, predicting a Bills win. All right, let's talk about the prospects to watch on Saturday with an eye towards the NFL draft and, of course, through the lens of the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to try to give you a bunch of prospects. You know, like, it'll obviously be game-specific, but I don't feel compelled to box it into, like, one guy. And a couple of these might be repeats, but they're players that I really like that are in marquee games. So at 12 o'clock, Fox put on number 2 Ohio State at number 13 Penn State. There's 5 prospects in this game that I think are very interesting that have appeal to me for the Buffalo Bills. From the Ohio State side of things, check out their tight end, Cade Foster. He wears number 8. Converted defensive player, big, athletic, just a very natural athlete in the way that he competes. I really like him. I really do. And I think he fits into that bet on traits, high upside type player that the Bills could want. And, you know, I'm sure the Bills will be adding a tight end. I don't know if Tommy Sweeney is going to be really something that this team buys into past this year. They might be looking to upgrade that and pair with Q Morris and Dawson Knox long-term. And so as a mid-round guy, Cade Stover, if he comes out, I think he's got a lot of appeal. Ohio State safety, Lathan Ransom, number 12. Versatile player. He's having a good season, smart, instinctive. You know, if the Bills are going to be in a position where somebody moves on at safety, if they don't bring back Jordan Poyer, they're probably going to draft the safety. Now, I can also live in a world where Poyer is back, Hyde's back, and DeMar Hamlin's back, but will they re-sign Jaquan Johnson, right? So even if Poyer is back, they could still be looking for that 4th guy. And maybe that 4th guy is Cam Lewis. Maybe that 4th guy is converting one of Dane Jackson or Christian Benford to safety. The Bills will have some options at safety, but I think it's at least interesting to note that they could be in the market for a safety in the draft, and Lathan Ransom, I think, kind of checks the boxes in terms of smarts and versatility. On the Ohio State offensive line, check out their center and their right guard, Luke Weichler and Matthew Jones. I think they're both mid-round picks with starter ability. And then lastly, Penn State has a safety, Jair Brown, wears number 16. He's got 9 interceptions since the start of last season. I don't think he's a super dynamic athlete, but the ball production and the coverage ability is appealing to me. So everyone should be watching Ohio State and Penn State. That's always a fun game every single year. And it's a great way to get your college football Saturday started. And there's some names. Now, there's other names in this game. CJ Stroud could be the first overall pick at quarterback. Penn State's got a tackle, a couple of tackles. I mean, there's a ton of names, but just through that Bills lens, those names are the ones that pop for me. At 3:30, kick it on over to CBS, Florida against Georgia. Got 3 players in this one that I think are interesting. Florida right guard Osiris Torrance. I've talked about him before. I know I have. But, man, he's everything I hope the Bills are able to get in a guard in terms of size and power. This guy's a killer in the run game. And I think we all want some killers up front, right, to create some space in the run game. And he's 350 pounds, and he moves pretty well. And he's an experienced player that I think, is probably more likely a second-round pick, but could he sneak into the end of the second round? Maybe so. But I really like him. He's one of my guys this year. Florida also has a defensive tackle, Gervin Dexter, number 9. He's probably a day 2 pick, but he's got size. He's got some flashes of explosiveness. He's got power against the run. And I think the Bills, if they don't bring back Jordan Phillips, they're going to need another defensive tackle. And so Gervin Dexter kind of fits that type of 1-tech, 3-tech hybrid player with size and power and explosiveness. From the Georgia side of things, a guy that I really like, safety Christopher Smith, number 29. I can see him playing safety. I think he could be kind of a safety slot hybrid player. Really smart player, physical. He's not super big. He's got sufficient size. I just think he's an experienced player that can fill multiple roles, that kind of does everything. He's smart. And for the Bills, I think you'd add more depth to your defensive backfield, a guy that can play teams. I could be a second, third, fourth round pick somewhere in that range, just depending on how we test and what his real size is. I think he's a smart football player that is going to have a role for somebody at the next level. Then at 7 o'clock, ESPN, 19 Kentucky versus number 3 Tennessee. This is going to be a fun football game. Obviously, you have 2 potential first-round picks at quarterback in Will Levis and Hendon Hooker, 2 guys that I like a lot. So that makes it really fun. But the player that I'm really enjoying is Tennessee wide receiver Jalen Hyatt. Wears number 11. This guy's explosive, 6 foot, probably about 185, 190 pounds. And he's got legit 4.3 speed, and he's getting behind everybody. He's dusted Alabama. He got behind their secondary all day long. He's winning vertical in all types of ways. He's got like 200 more receiving yards than anyone else in the SEC, 12 receiving touchdowns already this year. He's been unbelievably productive, and the speed that he offers is something that I would love to see for Josh Allen in this offense. So Jalen Hyatt, number 11, has really broken out this year. I think he's got a chance to be a day 2 pick, and he'd be a tantalizing choice for me if he was on the board, if the Bills were on the clock. So check him out. Also, left guard Jerome Carvin. He's a nice player. I don't think he's overly dominant, but technically sound, experienced. Has played center and both guard spots. And he plays within himself. He doesn't get overextended. You wish he was a little more powerful. You wish he was a little more athletic, but he's got size, he's got technique, and he's got experience. And I think as a mid-round pick, he could provide some quality depth and maybe even be a developmental starter for somebody out there. He's a player I've come to enjoy just how consistent he's been for Tennessee. So there you go. There's that's a lot of players. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different players I gave you there in 3 ball games if you're going to be watching college football on Saturday. So check those players out. All right, folks, it's in the barn. It's done. We've done everything we can here on this podcast to get ready for the Green Bay Packers. So the only thing that's left to do is for the Bills to score more points on Sunday night and for us to be real happy and enjoy our Halloween. So Hope you enjoy the game. I hope if you're coming to the game that you'll stop by the tailgate. Again, I'll put more details on social media. 4:30 tailgate vision. I keep saying tailgate vision. Tailgate Village between the bus lot and the RV lot right across from the stadium. 4:30 p.m. We'll have giveaways, food. You can get a copy of the book Go Bills as well. So come on by and say hello. All right, folks, that's it. Go Bills. Enjoy football this weekend. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to catching up with you again after the game.